How's it going, everybody? I am AV Obsessed, and if you're watching this video on my channel, that means that you probably are too. And today, I'm going to be doing a review of the speakers that I have been almost exclusively listening to for the past 2 months or so. The Arendal Sound 1610 Tower 8. The 1610 Tower 8 is the largest tower in Arendal's 1610 series, standing nearly 48 inches tall, about 10.5 inches wide. Unless you include the outrigger feet, then they're about 16 inches wide and almost 18 inches deep, and each speaker weighs about 100 pounds, which is why it's really nice that Arendal actually includes in the box furniture sliders, both for solid surface flooring and for carpeting, so you don't have to actually pick up and move the speakers around, which is really a good sign that Arendal cares about the customers that are buying their products, the fact that they include that. Also included in the box are these nice magnetic grills that cover each individual driver. And I don't know exactly what it is about the styling of these speakers, but these are one of the few speakers, actually I think the only speaker I've ever used, where I actually kind of like the way these look with the grills on versus with the grills off. Usually I'm not a fan of the look of the individual grills per driver on most speakers, but I don't know if it's just the colors or what, but for some reason I do like the look of these speakers with the grills on. One very minor thing that if I was working at Arendal Sound, like designing stuff like this, I feel like they could have included one more grill and put the magnets in the trim ring around the edge of the mid-range and tweeter array. That way you could put another grill in that spot as well, and it would have a nice uniform look all the way top to bottom. But that's not really a complaint, it's just something that I think would have been cool. But yeah, the styling on these things is really, really cool, and they are extremely well-built towers. They're using high-density fiberboard, or HDF, versus medium-density fiberboard, or MDF, so they are extremely solid feeling and very well-built towers. Now, at the time of recording this video, the 1610 Tower 8s are going for $7,600 a pair, and they also, in this range, have a center channel speaker that has the exact same mid-range and tweeter array, and then 2 of the same 8-inch woofers that the towers have. And then they also make the 1610 Bookshelf 8 speaker, which has, again, the same mid and tweeter arrangement and 1 of the 8-inch woofers. And then they have the 1610 Slim 8, which looks like it's probably one of the most badass on-wall surround speakers that you can get, with the exact same mid and tweeter arrangement, again, that all of the other speakers in the range have, and another single 8-inch woofer. It's just made much shallower so it can be mounted to a wall using a standard VESA mount. So one thing that I particularly like about the 1610 series, and also I haven't heard these in person, but looking at the specs and images online, the 1528 series, all the speakers in each series have the exact same mid-range and tweeter array, where it is essentially a tweeter that is nestled within a waveguide right on top of the mid-range driver, keeping those 2 drivers extremely close so that you get really, really nice coherent sound, almost similar to like a UniQ driver, but not quite the same thing. But they put the mid and tweeter extremely close together, which I think really helps with the coherence. And then the fact that they have that same mid-range and tweeter on all of the speakers in the series means that if you build a full surround system with this series of speakers, you're going to get not just a nice coherent sound coming from the speaker, but also from the entire surround sound system. When things pan around the room, you're not going to get any tonal or timbre changes, especially in the mids and the tweeter, from one speaker to another, which is like something that you would really want if you're building a high performance home theater. And that also brings me to make sure you guys like this video and share it all over the place and help get this video a lot of views, because if this video does well, then I could probably get Arendal to send me the center channel and a pair of the Slim 8 surround speakers, because I would like to hear what a full surround system sounds like using the entire Arendal 1610 series. Getting into what the Arendal Sound 1610 Tower 8 speakers actually sound like, right away, they are not your stereotypical, pun intended, stereotypical, they are not your stereotypical audiophile speaker that has, you know, a boost in the upper treble to try to force extra detail in your face. These are not like that. So if that's a thing that you're looking for, then these are probably not the speakers for you. These speakers are almost extremely neutral. They're kind of a more Kef-like sound as far as their frequency response, but I do think that I like the sound of these speakers a little bit more than what I've heard from like the Kef R series and stuff like that, which the R series are excellent speakers, but I do feel that it might be a little bit of a speaker that has not good enough dynamics. That was a really weird way to phrase that, but I'm going to keep it in. I think that the UniQ design or something about them, like they're not exactly dynamic and exciting speakers to listen to. That's not the case with the Arendals. The Arendals are very neutral, but they have pretty effortless dynamic swings. Like if somebody, you know, hits a hi-hat or a bass drum like really hard all of a sudden, they wake up and excite the room pretty quickly and effortlessly, especially if you provide a lot of power to them, because they are a 4 ohm nominal speaker, and I think it said that they're 89 dB efficient, but my Canton 896.2s are also, I believe they say they're 89 dB efficient, but I could hear that the Cantons were at least 3 dB more efficient than the Arendals. So you will want to power them with a very nice, powerful amplifier to get the dynamics that these things are capable of, but they are not a boring, flat-sounding speaker, even though they are extremely neutral. And that's an interesting subject, because I've had talks with some people before who say they don't like neutral speakers because they think that they're boring. And I think that people are mistaking flat frequency response with a flat sound because of some speakers not having very good dynamics. But like I said, these are not those kind of speakers. They're extremely neutral, but they have very good dynamics. Especially, like I said, if you power them with a good quality amplifier. I tested them over the past 2 months using my Macintosh MC462. So I was putting 450 watts per channel into these speakers. They do also say that they can handle up to 800 watts. So, you know, 450 watts is still not really touching what they're capable of. But I think that the Macintosh got basically as much out of them as I could reasonably expect without spending even more insane money. And then I also tested them out for a little while with the Rotel RB1590, which is also a very solid 2-channel amplifier that puts out 350 watts per channel. And the difference that I noticed with the Rotel versus the Macintosh, I feel like the Rotel was a little bit more forward in the mid-range, but it was not like a massive difference. But the biggest difference was that I noticed that in complex passages of songs, the Rotel sounded a little bit muddier. It couldn't delineate like the differences between different notes and instruments and frequencies quite as well as something like the Macintosh. And then I also, for a little while, ran them off of my Marantz Cinema 30. And the Cinema 30 did a decent job for being an AV receiver. as it should, because it's an almost $5,000 AV receiver, which, by the way, if you're watching this in July of 2026, I do have my Cinema 30 for sale because I want to either buy the Denon A1H or Marantz's separates, and that would be my upgrade. So if you guys are interested in that, look in the description down below. But the Cinema 30 did a pretty decent job with these speakers, but similar to the Rotel, complex passages sounded a little bit muddy in comparison to the Macintosh, and the speakers also could not dig nearly as deep in the bass running off of the Macintosh. So if you're using these for home theater and you don't have an external amplifier, having powered subwoofers and crossing them over at probably 40 hertz, because these things can dig pretty deep, so you could probably cross them over at 40, and that would make it so that your amplifier isn't trying to send the extremely low bass notes that use up all of the amplifier's current, essentially, and it'll keep the, mid bass and mid range and treble a lot cleaner if you're running this in a home theater setup. One thing that I found very surprising about these speakers when I first did the unboxing, it's funny, I never noticed it looking at the website or anything like that, but these things only have a single set of binding posts on the back, so you will not be able to bi-amp these speakers, which I know like 99% of people would never bi-amp a pair of speakers these days, but there are going to be a couple of people that are going to be disappointed in that, especially with a tower this large. I could see somebody out there wanting to power these big 8-inch, the 3 8-inch woofers that each tower has off of some like high output, but not particularly high quality Class D amp, and then using like a very small, single-ended triode or something like that, like 2 or 3 watt tube amp to power the mids and treble. And I could see some people wanting to do that, and that's not going to be an option with these speakers for you. If you want that, you're going to have to go up to the 1528 series, which is their flagship series, which I would really like to check those speakers out as well. So like I said earlier, make sure that you guys like and subscribe and share this video so that it gets a lot of views, and maybe Arendal will want to send me the 1528 series after I send back these 1610s. Now, going back to frequency response, let me bring up the graphs that I got using these speakers. Now, the way that I measure speakers, this is not intended to show you what the speakers are going to sound like in your room or anything like that. This is not anechoic measurements. This is actually with a mini DSP UMic 2 sitting in my listening position with both speakers running in my living room. So essentially, this measurement is showing what I heard when I was doing the review. So the first part of me talking about what the speakers sound like is my subjective observations, and this is objective measurements of what I was actually hearing. And what I do with REW or REW is essentially I hit the button when you go to measure. You can hit a button that says check levels, which plays pink noise through the speakers, and I get the volume to 75 as a reference point, and then 85, and then 90 decibels. And then I do the frequency response sweep to see how close to the target volume each frequency is, essentially. So when you're looking at this graph, you could see that all the way down to 20 hertz, we're getting usable bass. We're about 5 to 7 dB down below the target frequency, or the target volume at 20 hertz, which is pretty incredible. I mean, you would expect it with a tower this large with triple 8-inch woofers, but it's still pretty awesome to see a tower speaker that could dig down this deep. And then, as you can see, at about 30 hertz, we're getting some room gains. So we're actually above the target volume right here for 75, 85, and 90 dB. And then you'd get a very gradual downward slope that almost mimics like a Harman-like curve all the way out to, 10, 11,000 hertz. And then it slowly drops off once you get past, 11 or 12,000 hertz. So this is, like I said, an extremely neutral, like very well done speaker. Another aspect of how the speakers sound is obviously the imaging. And the imaging actually kind of amazed me with these speakers, because at one point I had them set up so that I had the Arendals and the Cantons like staggered. So I had on the left side of the room, I had Arendal sound, Canton, or no, I had Canton and Arendal, and then on the right side I had Canton and Arendal. So if I was sitting in my listening position, the speakers are not exactly even, and somehow, even though like the right speaker was further off to the side than the left speaker was, when I was listening to some tracks, one track in particular that I actually really like to use to test out a really good solid phantom center is the song I Wish I Was by the Avett Brothers, because when he starts singing in that song, if your speakers are set up properly and they image well, it sounds literally like he's directly in front of you in that track. And even though the speakers were not set up at all in an ideal way to get the best imaging out of them, I was still getting this perfect phantom center from these speakers. That is very different from the Cantons that I've been using since 2020 as my reference speakers. Those things I have to basically tune them, or not tune them, but position them absolutely perfectly to get a good image out of those things. So they're very good speakers, but they're extremely picky about their placement. Like I literally will have to get up and sit back down and get up and sit back down to make fine adjustments to their positioning, like turning them left and right and sliding them forward and back, probably 15, 20 times before I actually can get a good locked in center image. But with the Arendals, it was basically just like plop a speaker on the left and the right side of the room, and like I was happy with the imaging. So that was very, very exciting almost for me, because I'm so used to having such picky speakers as far as their placement. So after all that, would I recommend the Arendal Sound 1610 Tower 8 or the 1610 Tower series in general? Well, they are fairly expensive, but I do genuinely believe with the build quality of these speakers that these are the type of speakers that you're going to buy and you'll be able to hand down to your kids. Hopefully your kids will want them, because we need more young people in the audiophile world. But yeah, they are so well built that I see them lasting 40, 50, 60 years before somebody decides that they're ready to throw them out. So I could literally see people buying these and passing them down to their kids. And yes, like I said, they are fairly expensive at $7,600, but they do sound fantastic, and you could play them at very high reference volumes and they won't break a sweat. So the only reason that I would say you wouldn't want to look at these speakers would be, obviously, if your room is way too small for them, then you might want to look at the Bookshelf 8. Or, like I said, if you're the type of person who wants a speaker that has a boosted upper frequency range because you have like high frequency hearing loss, or that's just your preference, because these are, like I said, they are not your stereotypical hi-fi speaker that has boosted details up in the upper frequencies. But they dig super deep, and then they're very neutral across the entire frequency range. They are a true full range tower, and I think they look great and they're really well built. So I would definitely say that they are a highly recommended speaker if you're looking at something in this price range. So make sure that if you guys like this video, you like and subscribe and share the video. Anybody who's on any kind of audiophile forums or Reddit threads, try to share this video to pump up my channel. We got to get lots of views on this video so that Arendal will send me more stuff, because Arendal did send me these speakers for a 90-day like reviewer test period. Essentially, I do have to send them back. They're not a gift. But yeah, I'm not letting that influence anything that I say about the speakers. I just think that they are genuinely an excellent speaker, and the fact that they make a full range of speakers, if you're trying to do 2-channel hi-fi, which is how I reviewed them for the most part, they're great for that. And then if you want to build a home theater system using these, then they're great for that as well. The only thing I wish they would make would be an Atmos like angled baffle type of speaker, like something like an SVS Ultra Elevate speaker, or the SVS Prime Elevation speakers. Like, I kind of wish that they would make something like that matched these, but other than that, they are a very full line of speakers, and I love to see that, because there's a lot of high-end like 2-channel companies that completely ignore the home theater space, which I feel like they're like very much limiting themselves when they do that. But Arendal is not one of those companies, so that's awesome. And yeah, the included accessories too. Like, you could tell that they're a company that cares about their customers and the user experience. So yeah, I would say 10 out of 10 speaker, would recommend. And if you like this video, subscribe to the channel. And I'm going in circles now, so I'm going to sign off. If you guys watched all the way to the end, that means that you have to leave a comment. Tell me if you guys have had any experience with Arendal sound speakers in the past, and I will see you guys in the next review.